I started driving Uber at night because it paid better and because I liked the quiet. The city felt different after midnight, less rushed, more honest. Fewer people pretending, fewer conversations I had to fake. Most nights were predictable. Drunk passengers, tired nurses, the occasional airport run. I learned quickly that late-night riders fall into patterns, and patterns make long hours easier to handle. That night started like any other. I accepted a pickup just after 1 a.m., a short ride from a downtown apartment building to a residential neighborhood about 20 minutes away. The name on the request was generic, nothing that stood out. When I pulled up, only one person was waiting. A man in a dark hoodie standing just outside the range of the streetlight. He got into the back seat without a word. I greeted him. He didn't respond. Not unusual. Some people just want the ride. A few minutes in, I noticed something strange. The GPS route kept updating, not rerouting, updating. The destination stayed the same, but the arrival time kept extending by a minute or two every time we approached a turn. I assumed it was traffic data lagging behind. The streets were mostly empty anyway. Still, it nagged at me. I glanced at the rearview mirror. The man wasn't on his phone. He was watching the road ahead, perfectly still. About 10 minutes in, he spoke. "You don't usually take this way." I felt a jolt of irritation more than fear. I told him the app chose the route. He hummed softly and like he wasn't convinced. Then he said, "You drove me last week. You turned earlier." I didn't remember him. I drive dozens of people every week. I told him that. He smiled, just enough for me to see it in the mirror, and said, "You don't remember most things you repeat." The GPS glitched again. This time, the destination pin jumped. Same neighborhood, different street. I asked him to confirm the drop-off location. He said it was correct. His tone was calm, patient, like I was the one slowing things down. When I tried to manually adjust the route, the app froze. No buttons worked. The screen still showed the ride active. The timer's still running. I considered pulling over, but something about the emptiness of the road made me hesitate. The further we drove, the more familiar the streets felt, and that's when I realized why. We were looping. Not exactly the same roads, but close enough. Variations of turns I'd already taken. I checked the time. Nearly 40 minutes had passed. This ride should have been over half an hour ago. I told him we were going in circles. He leaned forward slightly and said, "You always say that at this point." My hands tightened on the wheel. I asked him what he meant. He sighed, like someone disappointed by a predictable outcome. Usually, this is when you start asking questions. Sometimes you pull over, sometimes you don't. I asked him to get out of the car. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He just said, "Not yet." The GPS finally updated again. The destination now read, "Current location." The app ended the ride on its own. No sound, no confirmation, just gone. My phone returned to the home screen like nothing had happened. The man sat back in his seat and said, "This is where I usually leave." When I stopped the car, he opened the door and stepped out into a dark side street I didn't recognize. Before closing the door, he looked back at me and said, "You'll forget this one too." I sat there for a long time after he left. When I checked my ride history, that trip wasn't there. No record, no payment, nothing. But the next morning when I opened the app, I had a 5-star rating from a rider I couldn't name. And under it, a single comment. "Good route. See you next time." I stopped driving nights after that. But every once in a while, when I'm half asleep, my phone lights up with a ride request. No pickup location, no destination. Just my car icon already moving. I told myself it would be my final night driving. Just one more shift to cover a bill, one more loop through the city while it slept. I'd been driving late nights for years, long enough to recognize patterns. Who talks, who doesn't, who sits behind you like they're trying to disappear. I knew the roads by muscle memory. I trusted the app more than my instincts. That was my first mistake. The request came in at 3:18 a.m. Pickup location? A dead-end service road behind a closed strip mall. Drop-off? Blank. The app let me accept it anyway. I hesitated longer than usual before heading out there. That stretch of road was poorly lit and rarely used even during the day. When I arrived, the parking lot was empty except for a single figure standing under a flickering light near a dumpster. Tall, still, facing away from me. I rolled down the window and asked if they were the rider. The figure turned slowly and nodded, then opened the back door and got in without a word. They smelled like rain and cold concrete. I started driving without checking the route because there wasn't one. The app showed the ride active but offered no navigation, no ETA, no distance, just the timer ticking upward. I asked where they were headed. They didn't answer. I tried again, a little firmer. Still nothing. In the mirror, I saw their eyes fixed on the road ahead, unblinking. A few minutes passed. Then they spoke. "You don't usually take this long." My jaw tightened. I told them there wasn't a destination listed. They replied, "There never is at first." Their voice was calm, neutral, like this was something they'd explained many times before. I glanced at the app again. The timer had stopped counting, frozen at exactly 4 minutes and 40 seconds. The streets around us began to feel wrong. Not unfamiliar, worse than that. Familiar in the wrong order. Turns led to roads I recognized, but landmarks were missing or misplaced. A gas station where a park should be, an overpass that shouldn't exist. The passenger leaned forward slightly and said, "You've been here before." I told them I hadn't. They hummed softly, unconvinced. The app finally updated. Drop-off location appeared. It was my home address. I told them that wasn't happening, that I wouldn't take a passenger to my house. They tilted their head, studying me in the mirror, and said, "This is where you always stop." My phone buzzed. A message from the app. Route confirmed. I tried to cancel the ride. The screen dimmed, then returned to the map. No buttons worked. As we got closer, the passenger started pointing things out, where I usually parked, which lights I forgot to turn off, how I hesitated before unlocking my door when I thought someone might be behind me. Each detail landed heavier than the last. I felt exposed in a way I couldn't explain, like my life had been reduced to a series of habits someone else had memorized. When we pulled onto my street, they said, "You can end it tonight." I stopped the car in front of my house, hands shaking. I asked what they meant. They replied, "Most drivers don't. They keep going. They take another fare. They forget." They reached into their pocket and placed something on the seat between us. My spare key, the one I'd lost months ago. I turned around and shouted for them to get out. The back seat was empty. The ride ended on its own. 5 stars, no comment, no payment, just silence. I sat there until dawn, afraid to go inside. When I finally did, nothing was out of place. No signs of a break-in, no messages, no proof. I quit driving that morning. Months passed. Life settled. The fear dulled. One night, unable to sleep, I opened the Uber app out of habit. The screen loaded slowly, then showed a single notification waiting for me. "You're available now." I deleted the app. But sometimes when I lie awake at night, I swear I hear a car idling outside my house, engine running, door unlocked, waiting for me to decide whether this time I'll end the ride. I didn't plan on taking an Uber that night. I'd missed the last train home by a few minutes and stood on the empty platform longer than I should have, hoping something would change. It was after 2 a.m., the city quiet in that hollow way it only gets when most people are asleep. I finally opened the app, more out of resignation than choice, and requested a ride home. The car arrived almost immediately. Too quickly, actually. I hadn't even locked my phone yet when the notification popped up saying my driver had arrived. The car was already pulled over when I stepped outside, Engine running, headlights off. That struck me as odd, but I was tired and cold, and exhaustion has a way of lowering your guard. I got in the back seat, nodded a greeting, and watched the door close behind me. The driver didn't speak. That wasn't unusual, but something about the silence felt heavier than normal. No radio, no navigation voice, just the sound of the engine and the tires on asphalt. I checked my phone to make sure the ride had started. It had. The route looked correct. Estimated arrival time, 23 minutes. 5 minutes in, I noticed we were taking unfamiliar streets. At first, I assumed the app was avoiding traffic, but the longer we drove, the less recognizable the area became. Industrial buildings replaced apartments. Streetlights thinned out. I glanced at the driver in the mirror, expecting to see him watching the road. Instead, he was watching me. Not constantly, just enough that I caught his eyes flick away when I noticed. I asked if everything was okay with the route. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The app's acting strange tonight," he said. His voice was calm, practiced. I nodded, trying to relax. I checked the map again. The destination pin was still my apartment, but the ETA hadn't changed. Still 23 minutes. We'd already been driving longer than that. I mentioned it. He didn't respond this time. The car slowed as we passed through a stretch of road with no buildings at all, just open space and fencing. The city felt far away. My phone buzzed with a notification, and my stomach dropped when I saw it wasn't from Uber. It was a text message from an unknown number. "You usually sit on the right side." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. I hadn't told the driver where I preferred to sit. I typed back, "Who is this?" But the message failed to send. No signal. I tried to cancel the ride. The button did nothing. I looked up to tell the driver to stop the car. He was already slowing down. We pulled over on the side of the road, surrounded by darkness. No streetlights, no passing cars. He put the car in park, but didn't turn off the engine. "You don't need to worry," he said. "This part always feels longer than it is." I asked him what he meant. He sighed and turned in his seat slightly, not fully facing me, like he didn't want to seem threatening. He said, "Most passengers don't notice until now. You're quicker than usual." I demanded to get out. He nodded. He said, "You can, but the ride won't end." He gestured to my phone. The screen still showed the trip in progress. My apartment address stared back at me like a promise that wasn't going to be kept. It never does on its own. I opened the door anyway. The moment my foot touched the ground, my phone vibrated. The Uber app refreshed. The ride ended. I slammed the door shut and stepped back, breathing hard, expecting the car to speed away. It didn't. The driver rolled down the window and said, "You should walk straight home. Don't check the app tonight." Then he drove off slowly, like there was no rush. When I got home, my phone showed the ride had lasted 6 minutes. I checked my bank account. No charge, no record, no driver profile, nothing. But under notifications, there was one message I couldn't clear. "Thanks for riding again." I never use Uber after midnight anymore, but sometimes when I open the app by accident, it already shows a car nearby, engine running, waiting for me to miss the last train again.